Hello there, and welcome to the very first episode of the Big Strong Girls podcast with me, Amy Massey. We are a completely unfiltered podcast exploring all plus-size female-related topics, including strength and fitness, weight loss trends, mental health, relationships with food, and so much more. Now, starting a podcast was not on my bingo card for this year, I will say, but after building the studio in Harrogate that we now have, the Big Strong Girls Club, these conversations that we are having inside of there need to be heard by many, many, many more women, in my opinion. There are some topics that we have been talking about that people don't fully understand, that are having new insights into, and these, in my opinion, are conversations that people are not having because they either don't have enough experience or confidence to have these conversations with other people, or they are afraid of the backlash that they would get by having these conversations and putting them online. So we're going to do just that. But in this first episode, I just kind of wanted to introduce you to the Big Strong Girls Club and kind of what we do here, and an insight into my background and my journey and why the Big Strong Girls Club came to exist in the first place. So I'm going to share 3 of the biggest markers in my life that became the biggest catalysts to the Big Strong Girls Club being created. And I know that there is so many of you women out there that will relate wholeheartedly to my story, even if you've been through something in the past similar or are currently going through something similar now. I know that there will be points in this that you will definitely be able to relate to. Just a quick trigger warning that there are some not harsh topics, but there will be some difficult topics that I'll cover. And if for whatever reason they're a little bit too hard for you to listen to right now, by all means, fast forward through some of the stuff that I talk about and come out at a place where you're ready to tune back in again. So one of the first influences of why the Big Strong Girls Club was created in the first place was spending the ages of between 13 to 18 always being the bigger kid. Being labelled, as we all know, as what is the fat friend, even though I didn't really have many friends between 13 and 18 for this very reason, but always seeking food for comfort, not having much stability between that age in terms of like family and like family dynamics and all that sort of stuff, which I'm definitely not going to go into on this episode. We will definitely cover this at some point though. And always finding, again, that comfort in food, and anytime the bullying would get too much at school, turn to food. Every time grandma would come and pick me up from school, she'd have food waiting. There is not many people that I know that would be able to demolish a 12-inch margarita pizza and a portion of fries in one sitting at the age of sort of like 13. Felt quite an accomplishment then, but not so much now. So always turning to that, and then going through primary school, high school, into college, has always been that outsider looking in, because I never had any confidence in myself because of my size, and always being told through bullies that I'd never amount to anything, and that wasn't good for anything. Like, it's one of those things that just wears you down. And 100% that still carries on into when people hit the 20s and people making snide comments in the street, or whether it's like you're in a relationship and there's snide comments being made there. Like, these things that are said are always reinforcing thoughts that we have been told before, or we just have due to things that we've seen, of other comments that people have made about others that look like us. So definitely the ages of between 13 to 18, and having that really struggled relationship with food, and my mum being the first person to take me to a Slimming World group at 15, that completely changed my outlook of food, because at 15, that then showed me that actually the size that I wasn't good enough, and that there were things in place, like Slimming World, like Weight Watchers, that were put there to make you smaller and therefore worthy or good enough. So I mean, being put in a Slimming World group at the age of 15, not ideal, I'm not going to lie. And being celebrated every time you lost weight, being told that actually exercise wasn't important and that you could eat as much pasta as you wanted, which later came to mind that was never a good idea. And it just built this really turbulent relationship with myself and with food. And that developed on into quite a bad binge eating disorder, which I suffered with really from the age of 15, kind of from that point on, up until I think it got to its worst at about 23, could be wrong, I think it's 23. And from ages 15 to 23, my relationship with food and myself and my self-confidence just degraded more and more and more and more. The more diet culture I was exposed to, the more social media I was exposed to, coming up through that when obviously Facebook got popular. And that came to a head in 2015. I think I was 21 at the time. I just celebrated my 21st birthday. And I'm not going to name names on here because I don't want a fucking lawsuit. But I had just finished with a personal trainer, a female personal trainer, I can say that. And she had been teaching me the ways of eating only specific foods, if I can remember this rightly, only eating specific foods throughout the week, and then one day a week having as much food, as much cheat food, I'm pretty sure you can probably see me doing air quotes as you listen to this, as much cheat food and as many calories as I could possibly consume in one day. Now, I was not aware at this point that my binging behaviours / all or nothing mentality had got so out of control that I was manipulating people to get what I wanted. I was hiding food. I was waiting for people to go out of the house. I was then eating food in secret and then discarding the rubbish, or evidence as I called it back then, not in the inside bin in the house, but I would purposely take it to the wheelie bin outside and get rid of it outside because obviously no one looks there, and then acting like nothing had ever happened. So this one day, like I said, 21 years old, I'd lived on the outside looking in, like everything looked like it was spot on. Like I'd got a nice car, I'd just moved into a 3-bedroom new build with my other half. We'd been together like 5 years at this point, maybe 4, 3 or 4 years at this point. So I had a reasonably good relationship. I'd got a good job, like everything on the outside looking in seemed pretty good. But this one day, I had been on shall we call it a clearance website, where basically you can get cheap food because it's going out of date. And I'd bought, believe it or not, a multi-pack of Mars bars and a multi-pack of Snickers. Now, I don't actually like Snickers, so I'm not quite sure why I bought them in the first place, but I digress. So these things had all turned up. I'd put them in a Asda carry bag, and my first thought was, you need to hide these so that no one else sees them, so that you can grab them when you want one, and no one will know, no one will be any wiser. So Amy thought, right, cool, no one in this house, apart from me and my other half, is going to look under the kitchen sink. I mean, my other half probably won't even look under the fucking kitchen sink. So, put them in an Asda bag, put them under there. For whatever reason this day, my other half decided to look under the kitchen sink and saw this Asda carry bag. And at this point, I might add, he was working nights, so Amy was alone in the house from 7 until 7, like PM to AM. Pretty isolated, didn't really have that much family, like close by, within like 10-15 minutes. So I was spending a lot of time either scrolling social media or watching shit on Netflix. I wasn't exercising to a degree. And I just felt very alone and very isolated. So those nights I would spend waiting for him to leave the house. I would disappear to Asda with like 10 or 20 quid, and I would just buy as much shit as humanly possible. And we're talking like a frozen pizza, like a Chicago Town frozen pizza, a box of brownies, a bag of Haribo, bag of Sensations, crisps, tub of Ben and Jerry's, 2 ready meals, like a carbonara or something like that. And I would sit, you're talking in excess of like 3,000 calories and then some. I would sit, cook, and absolutely demolish every single thing that I had bought. Why? To this day, because it was okay because no one else knew, only I knew. So therefore, if no one else knew, it wasn't happening, it wasn't a big deal, it didn't exist. In my brain, that's how it felt at the time. So, as I digress, back to the kitchen sink. So, he found this bag, opened the bag, and I was in the living room at the time, or I was like cleaning the like downstairs toilet or something. And he just popped his head round the side of the door and just went, "What's this?" And it's like, at that point, the jig was up. I either had to try and explain away the big bag of chocolate that he'd just found and lie, or I could come clean. And initially, I was going to lie. I was going to say, like, but how the fuck do you explain away 12 chocolate bars in an Asda carrier bag under the sink? Like, there's nothing really you could say that would make sense as to why that was there. So, the like I say, the jig was up at that point. I just remember slumping down the wall in the downstairs toilet and just breaking down is the best way I can explain it. It's like, at the same time, a weight had lifted off my shoulders because now someone else was in on it and knew what was going on. But at the same time, it made everything real that was happening. Like the depression that I'd had of spending days in bed, not wanting to communicate with anyone, just not wanting to see the outside world, not wanting to shower or take care of myself, had gotten so bad. Obviously some days were better than others, but a lot of the days were bad. Then obviously this happening, it was like, I really need some fucking help. But when you are in something that is inside your own head, very, very often it becomes all consuming and just completely overwhelming. And I'm very grateful that he found that day and I could start rebuilding my life from that point on. And it was so surprising to me at the time when I started trying to get help and going to the GP and being told that they could put me on antidepressants or they could send me to CBT therapy, cognitive behavioural therapy, if no one knows what that stands for. But there's a waiting list of 2 years. And even in that state, I thought, well, antidepressants are just going to be a band-aid for a fucking shotgun wound at the minute. So that's a no-go. That's not going to help. And obviously a 2-year waiting list for CBT is not going to be any help anytime soon. So I really did have to take my own life into my own hands and go and get help sooner rather than later. Which luckily I found my first sort of like behavioural mental performance coach, I can kind of call him, Mr. Paul Mott, very shortly after that. And that changed my entire outlook on how I treated myself, how my behaviours, and it held up a very large mirror to some of the things that I was doing, not because of something I had done, but because of things that have happened in my past that I'd not dealt with and that were manifesting within my own behaviours and my relationship with food. So I was very fortunate to get that help when I did. So that is definitely probably 1 and 2, the biggest influences that have created the Big Strong Girls Club today. I would say the third one is after COVID, obviously the world went to shit. I should really put a censor warning on this podcast as well. I'll make sure to do that. Bit explicit. The world went to shit, obviously, during COVID and the aftermath of COVID. And anyone that was working online in terms of a coaching capacity, an online coach or a personal trainer at that time, had the carpet pulled from underneath them, and had to reevaluate, and everyone had to go online. And I personally, at that time, thought, yeah, working online, it gives me that freedom, even though I've just spent the best part of a year in my fucking house not going anywhere, which we had no freedom whatsoever. I thought, yeah, how could this go wrong, shall we say? But luckily, obviously, as lockdown lifted, I'd always loved being on the gym floor, interacting with clients in person, having these conversations, having these therapy sessions, as they call them, and really just having that face-to-face value with people again. And I joined the coaching team at Coach Harrogate, and as much as I loved doing one-to-one coaching, there was not enough hours in the day for me to get through and impact as many people as I humanly wanted to. And I was constantly seeing this, I don't even know what to call it, this just influx of plus-size women walking into the gym and just looking completely clueless. And that is so true for so many of us, whether we're plus size or not, as women walking into an unknown territory for the first time. And being with a client and seeing these other women and just thinking, I want to help these people. I want to be able to just go over or hold a space where these women can come in and just feel safe and seen and heard, and that they feel like they belong somewhere, even in a commercial gym. So, Bright Spark over here thought, right, you need to do something about this, and we need to invent something, because there clearly isn't anything right now that is catering for this. So, the Big Strong Girls Club was formed. This consisted of me, a metal cage of a room, and 12 treadmills, 12 bike ergs, and 12, benches with like bits of equipment in. And I wanted to run a group training class filled with both strength training and cardio conditioning fitnessy things, so that these women could link up with other like-minded women in this little community, whether it was 2, 3, 4 sessions a week. We started with, I think, 2 or 4, just 2 days a week, where they could feel like they could get hands-on coaching, so they could build their confidence within the gym, but build strength and fitness within their current bodies without feeling judged or looked upon within the gym. So, what I will say is I thought this was a fucking cracking idea when I first started. I thought, I'm onto something, like so many people are going to want this. Like, I was massively hyped about it. So it comes to the first week. I'd done a week of launching, I'd been talking about it, promoting it on Instagram. I'd got my whiteboard that was in the staff room, written, my workout and everything on it, and the training programme for the day. 7 p.m. rolls around. I think it was a Monday or a Tuesday evening, I think. And 7 o'clock rolls around, no one turns up. 7:05, no one there. Thought, this has gone down a bit of a shitstorm, hasn't it? This is not started the way I thought it would. So, not willing to give up just yet. Came back the Thursday when the next class was on, 7 p.m. again. Me and my whiteboard, sat on the bench. Again, 6:45, no one there. 5:07, no one turned up. This continued for 6 fucking weeks. 6 weeks, twice a week, of me and my whiteboard sat on the bench in this metal cage with absolutely no one turning up. Amy looking like an absolute fucking turnip, just sat there, just like it was bringing me back to schoolyard, sat on her own with no friends. That's kind of how it felt. And at that 6-week point, I thought, what is the fucking point? I've stuck it out for 6 weeks. Like, what? I may as well just cancel it. Like, no one's turning up. Thank Christ I turned up on week 7. So the Tuesday, I think there was 3 people that turned up. That meant the absolute world to me, because if you don't know, I have ADHD. So projects are not something that usually get finished in my world. It is a lot of half-finished things floating about. So on this particular day, this Tuesday, these 3 people turned up and we had a whale of a time. I was still finding my feet with it because that had been the first time I'd actually coached it within 7 weeks. But we got through it. There was a buzz, there was an energy, like these women were enjoying the strength part, not so much the fitness part, but it ended up being kind of the spicy finisher, which we still have to this day, nearly a year and a half later. And it grew from there. It only took 2 weeks for our Tuesday evening sessions to be fully booked, to our Thursday evening sessions being fully booked, to then adding more classes that became fully booked with 2 weeks waiting lists on them. And it literally just caught on like wildfire, which was just incredible. Again, trials and tribulations with things like this. I put on some morning classes. They got busy initially and then they absolutely tanked, so we took those off. Bit of trial and error. And we ended up getting to a place where like there was 12 women all absolutely buzzing within these sessions, ranging in all sizes from plus size to not plus size, to 65 years old to 18. Like, it was such a special atmosphere of every single woman in there just having one common goal, which was just to feel better about themselves, to feel stronger, to feel fitter, and to feel more body confident, which is why they were there in the first place. So fast forward, that was February, fast forward to July, September time. I got approached by one of the women that was inside of our community at that time, and Brimham's Active, which are a North Yorkshire sort of like council gym facility thing that span like 4, 5, 6 different facilities within North Yorkshire, wanted to set up a meeting about me running the Big Strong Girls Club in their Harrogate gym. So that ended up happening, as history says. And we had that both Tuesday and Thursday at that Harrogate centre. So we came away from coach and moved that up to the Hydro. If you're listening and you're not from Harrogate, I do apologise, because you'll have no idea what I'm talking about, but we move on. That then expanded into another one of their facilities for Knaresborough, and that turned into more of a small group personal training type session. And from there, I was constantly getting comments from people of like, why are you working? Why is this in a gym? Like, you need your own facility. And I'd been toying with the idea for quite some time, but for me, that was a big commitment. Like, again, I spent a lot of my time flicking between things, half in ideas, half out of ideas, just kind of dropping something if it doesn't work. And this had always been coming back into my head at some point, and I was like, how amazing would it be to just have my own facility where these women could come together, like they didn't have to worry about other like blokes looking at them or like other women judging them, and they could just be themselves and just come in for the reasons that they want to be there. Again, training with intent, having that body confidence, and just having a really tight-knit community of just other women supporting women. That was the ideal goal. But my brain kept passing it off as like, you're not going to be committed, like what if you want to travel? which never happens, by the way. There's all these online coaches that, end up emigrating to Dubai or Australia or things like that, and, have the working from laptop lifestyle. That is 100% not me. So why I wanted that in the first place, I will never fucking know. But I ended up getting the opportunity to rent a facility, which came out of thin air. There was some funding that came at the same time, and it just felt like all the stars were aligning. So the Big Strong Girls Club studio was born. We launched at the beginning of July, literally just gone. And it has been an absolute whirlwind rollercoaster ever fucking since. The people that we've got inside our community is more than I could ever dreamt of. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, there are so many conversations that are happening inside of there now that need to be heard by the wider audience, that where the women are obviously much further afield, like yourselves, that have these thoughts but need to be a part of these conversations because they're either not in the right circles of the people that are having these conversations, or have social media pages or feeds, whatever you want to call them, just full of bullshit that doesn't apply to them. Whether it's online fitness coaches telling them that they need summer bodies and that they can drop 10 kilos to look amazing in a bikini. It really fucking winds me up. Or you've got dickheads like Stephen Bartlett. I like his podcast, don't get me wrong, but when he brings health people into it, really fucks me off. You'll hear a lot of this across the next couple of episodes. But telling you that you've got to cut out carbs and that fucking sugar's the devil, and like you can't eat dairy if you've got PCOS, and just all this misinformational bullshit that you end up taking as fucking Bible because you've got nothing else to believe in, and you've got so many conflicting opinions, so many search terms that come up on Google to any question that you ever ask it in terms of weight loss, because that you think that is the be all and end all, that I would much rather create a place like this podcast now where plus size women and just women in general within the industry can come together and create a safe space for women to listen, to get the information that they need from accurate sources, science-based backing sources. I can't stress that enough. But also listen into people's stories of the people that have been through similar experiences like myself, like clients of mine and members of the studio that I'm going to bring onto the podcast, and other members of my inner circle, my coaches, other female coaches within the industry that have this knowledge and these lessons and challenges that they have been through, that are ready to share those so that other people can get something from these episodes, which is the biggest thing that I want you to take from it. And there's going to be some swearing, there's going to be some laughter, there's probably going to be some tears along the way as well. And yeah, welcome to the first episode of the Big Strong Girls podcast, and I hope you stick around for the rest. Speak to you soon.